Hi everyone, my name is İşcan. I'm the assistant of the Python programming language in our semester. And so, in order to use the Python, especially in the Windows and the Linux or Mac application, we need to install some specific tools related to the usage of the Python. And so, in this lesson, I will describe the installation and download of some specific tools that we need in the implementation of the Python programming language. Okay, and so firstly you need to click the Google or some browser web-based internet on this searching area, and then firstly we need to download the VS Code. Okay, Visual Studio Code. There are differences between the Visual Studio and the Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio is installed in the on the C or your usage library, but the Visual Studio Code is like some interpreted text machine or the text box in order to use your feature of some specific programming language, for example the C or C++ or the Python language. Okay, and so in a simple way, the Visual Studio Code can be considered as some text editor, nothing more. But the Visual Studio is another perspective, is some integrated development environment, which includes many compilers or the tools or the related libraries. But the Visual Studio Code is simple text editor without any compiler or any language. Okay, and so why we need to use the Visual Studio Code? Visual Studio Code is a local based software, which means that we can easily transform the whole information into the Visual Studio Code, and we can add the extension and some libraries in order to get the higher performance in the Visual Studio Code. And so the basic benefits of the usage of the Visual Studio Code is the easily implement on the system. But in the Visual Studio we have the many libraries and the project environments, but it's highly expensive costs in the Visual Studio usage. Okay, and so in the usual Visual Studio Code we should add some specific libraries, and then we don't need more than anything, but we need it in our application. And so it's so fast in order to make or create a project. But we need to add and make some libraries in the Visual Studio Code. But in another way, the Visual Studio has or possesses some specific libraries with the huge RAM storage and the memory storage. Okay, and so Visual Studio Code has the 72 megabytes in your system, and it's implemented on the user code. But in the Visual Studio we may have the 40 gigabytes location in our memory structure. Okay, and so in the next we should go to the code.visualstudio.com/download section in our web browser. And so if you are using the Windows, you should select this section in here, like this one. Or if you are using the Linux system or the Mac system, you should check this variable. Okay, and so if I check this or push this button, and then our browser knows what's the main property or the operating system on this selection. And so this VS Code user stubs is automatically downloaded in here, like this one. Okay, and so this is the basic VS Code user setup executable file in here, like this one. And so if I have this location in here for the x64 compilation process or the 6 architecture, and so we can download this program. This is basically a setup program in order to what? In order to install your VS Code in your system, okay? And so if I push the button of these things and then I accept the agreement in here like this one, and so I always choose the create a desktop in here like this one, because if you have any desktop item on your desktop application, and so you can easily find the program, okay? And also we need to add this selection in here like this one, the add open with code action to Windows Execute file context menu, and so the direct text menu, and you should always select the register code as an editor for support file types, because if you have any library or any code without the registration process in your computer, and then there are some libraries cannot be found by your VS Code, okay? And always check the add to path in here, because every process in your Windows application should search a specific path which is given in the environment variables. And so if you don't have any path related to VS Code, and so you cannot run or work with the VS Code, Visual Studio Code, okay? This is the basic information which is given by us to the computer, and then the computer knows where is the program, or where is the binary file or bin file or executable file, okay? And so if I next in here like this one, the additional tags is given in here as a warning, and so if you push the install button in here, and then the VS Code easily installed. In this computer, in my computer, I always installed the VS Code, and so I'm gonna cancel this process. But if you push the install button in here like this one, and then the VS Code easily installed, okay? And so if you have the VS Code in here like this one, and so the VS Code can be codable in here, okay? We have some basic operation in here with the Explorer section, the Terminal section, and another task can be given at this moment, okay? And so how can we use this editor? Firstly, you need to remember that we can add some specific file in here like this one, the main.cpp can be given at this moment. And so this is the example session of how can I use the editor like this one. Using namespace can be given in here, and so the main body can be built by the hello guys, okay? And so if I run this code, and then our program gives us the specific task or the specific output in here like this one, okay? The terminal section includes the hello guys in here. So this is an example of another language can be implemented on these things, but how can we compile or interpret the whole codes in the VS Code structure? This is important because if we have the CPP or C++ compiler in here like this one, and then we can compile the whole code by the Visual Studio Code. But how can we install these tools? Remember that the Visual Studio Code is like any editor, like the text documents or the text or the Word documents in here. But this is specialized the editor in order to sense your language, CPP or C or C# or Python, and then you can easily run all the codes by using this IntelliSense editor, okay? But how can we add the Python extension or the Python library? Remember that Visual Studio Code does not include any library you need to add or install every library into the what? Into the Visual Studio Code. Okay? And so, in order to do that, we have at the left hand side of the screen extension session, or Control Shift X can be goes these terms. Okay? And so, this I recommended the extension session. And so, if you have any internet connection in here, like this one, we can add some specific language by using the searching the Python in here. If I add the Python in here, like this one, and so at the top of this selection, the Python session in here. Okay, this is simply the interpreted IntelliSense editors, which means that the Visual Studio Code extension can be used by installing this section. But you should remember that this is not a compiler, or this is not an interpreted editor. This is only the tool to know what is the variable or some specific keywords given in the Python language. This is not an editor. This is an IntelliSense section in order to what? In order to linking, debugging, and another usage or keywords which is given in the what? In the Python programming language. And so, in order to use the Python, you should select the install session in here, like this one. Okay? And so, if you have any internet connection in here, and then the installing process is started in here. Okay? This take a while in here, like this one. And so, if the installed is seen in here, like this one, then the extension is enabled globally. You can disable it or enable it by using these terms, but we don't have any option to disable all the things because we need to program the Python process. Okay? And so, how can I test my program is okay or not? Firstly, main.py should be added in here. Every Python programming language has a subscription or the AND operator .py. Py. In order to what? In order to sense your VS Code to what? To detect this is a Python program or not. If you don't have any subscription in here, like this one, the AND operator .py, you cannot compile or you cannot debug your program. And so the Windows or the Visual Studio Code or any another language knows this is Python program when we add the .py. Okay? And so if we have these terms in here like this one, firstly we need to add the a equal 5, b equal 5, c is equal to the a plus b, and so the print c can be run on this system. And so how can we run the R program in the Visual Studio Code administration? Firstly, you cannot push the Control F5 button in order to debug your program or run the program. But if I push this program, you need to select the Python interpreter before you start debugging. And so this VS Code tells us you may have the linker or the IntelliSense editor, but you don't have any compiler in here, or you don't have the debugging session in here, or in the Python terminology, you don't have the interpreter that can be installed in your computer. How can we install the specific interpreter on your computer system? We may use the internet in here, like this one. The Python downloads can be searched in your Google web browser. And so this is the first diagram, www.python.org downloads can be selected in here. This sheet includes the many version of the Python. For example, looking for a specific version here, like this one, you may use the 3.7.14 or you may use the 3.a.2. This is the release version of the Pythons, because the Python is an open source project, and so it is updated by the users, or optimizing your solver and compiler or interpreter by the users or the developers for this language. And so how can we select the specific version of these things? Usually you may use the Python 3.10.7, but this is the latest version, and so this may be not stable for every language or every tool which is given in the Python 3.10. Okay, but I prefer the Python 3.7.14 in here because this is more stable version, and the release date is the September 6th, but it is always updates and more stabilized to what the 3.10. You may use or you may install the 3.10.7 version in here, but it's not recommended for me. Okay, and so if I choose the Python 3.7.14 and I click the version of these things, and so there are some specific files in here like this one, but the download section is also given in here. Okay, firstly you need to remember that the files gzip source types xx compressed source tarbile is includes the specific version of your system, but if we have this stable version in here, you need to check the Python 3.8.14 section. We don't have any Windows version in here like this one, and so you need to check the 3.10.7. Oh, Windows installer is given in here. Firstly, you need to remember that we may use the 3.7 version of the Python, but the Windows installer cannot be implemented on this system, and so in order to make some easily installed program Python, we may use the 3.10.7 version, or we may use the 3.7.1, and so web-based installer or executable installer is presented in here in the latest or in the first version of the Python 3.7.1. okay, but in our lessons we will use the latest version of this Python in here like this one, 3.7. and so if I have this program, if your Windows executes is the 32 bits or the 64 bits, and so we need to check this function, or for the macOS you can use this selection. gzip source tarball and xz compressed source tarball can be used, but you should know that this is the version of the Linux or Windows. Okay, and then we need to check the Windows installer 64-bit selection in here, and so the Python 3.10.7 version is downloaded. Okay, and so if we have this version of the application, and then if we push this Python selection in here like this one, and so the install now can be selected, but you need to remember that you need to add the Python 3.10 to path should be selected. As you know, if you don't have the path of the Python 3.10, and so this computer or your computer cannot be find where is the executable file or compiler or interpreter of the Python, and so we need to add this selection in here like this one, and so the install now selection should be selected, and then we can say yes in here like this one and the whole standard library and another language processing, debugging, or compiler session, or the interpreted language should be added at this moment. Okay? This is important because we need to add the path file in order to use the everywhere in your computer to Python. Okay? And so if we install this setup progress in here, like this one, and then we can close the whole section in here. And so if I have the Python X file in here, this is arbitrary name of my folder, and so if I push the right click in here, the open with code or open Visual Studio Code is selected. Remember that in the Visual Studio Code we have added some specific additional option, and so this specific options is giving us to select the open with code section in here. And if I choose this section, and if I push the yes in here like this one, and so we have the terminal page in here like this one. But in this session we have the Jupyter section is added in here. Okay? And so if I run again this code like this one, the 10 is given at this moment. Remember that select the interpreter in here like this one, the enter interpret path, or you can choose the Python 3.7 64 bits in here, which is located in what app data local programs Python blah blah blah Python exe. Python exe is the general program to compile your codes which is written by the user in order to what? In order to do specific language or interpreted language. Okay? Python is an interpreted language, unlike the C or C++. There cannot be transformation of your code to the machine code or binary code. Okay? And so if I select these things and then I can give this number, and Ctrl F5 button can be given at this now, or we can add the hello guys section in here like this one. I'm sorry, like this one. Hello guys 12 is seen on the terminal page. Okay? Or we can run the whole codes like this one by using this code. Python is our executable file which is seen on the computer by using the add path, because the path is generalized in our system, and so this Python can be used like this one. Or in here, this is a specific program coming or calling by the PowerShell application in here, and so main.py can be compiled in here. And so if I run, or if I push the enter button in here with the specific command line code, and then hello guys 12 is run. Okay? And with the change of this specific session we can get the Python main.py. This is given at this moment. Okay? And so this is the general implementation of our Python programming language in the Visual Studio Code implementation. And so what's path, or what's the environment variables? Firstly, you can search the system environment variables in here like this one, which is given in the system properties, and so environment variables is given in here. Okay? Environment variables is used in the Windows application in order to what? In order to select some specific path. To do what? To add your local programs into into Windows selection. Firstly, you need to remember that if suppose that you have any folder which is given in your system, and so this folder includes some files, C files or C++ files, but the executable file or compiler is included or installed in the C folder, and so these folders are different. And then how can your program or how can Visual Studio Code, where is the main compiler section or the executable file in your system? Environment variables is used to complete this task. You see that the path section in here, like this one, the Python script or Python 12.310 is added in here. And so if I add this path, and so every program which installed on your computer sees what the Python interpreter or executable file. Okay, and so these are the basic tutorial of the Visual Studio Code implementation on the Python section. And so in the next session we will talk about how we can add some specific libraries to Python X. Okay, and now we may have some plotting operation in here. For example, we have some specific tools in order to manipulate your matrix operation or the mathematical operation. How can we install these tools into your computer? These are tasks in here like this one. Firstly, I have some library in here, the Numpy in Python, like this one. Okay, and so how can we add this library? Remember that you don't have any library in here or in your computer. You should always update your computer in order to install this Numpy variable in here. Okay, firstly we can check the install session in here like this one. If you are using the Conda in here like this one, this Conda is an editor or tool to install every Python environment or some specific tools given in the Python language. Some creators create this library in order to manipulate the matrix operation or the mathematical operations, or creating the vectors or the dynamic arrays which is given in the in the Python language. But we have the Pip installation in here or in your Visual Studio Code. Firstly, you need to check this. The Pip is some specific library and the program in here like this one, and then we can install easily some libraries in here by using the pip install numpy. Okay, and so if I enter this code, and then the downloading process is added in here. And firstly we need to add some specific library in here, and then the numpy is added like this one. And so if you are using some specific mathematical operation in your Python application, and then you should firstly install this library. Okay, and so how can we use this numpy? First, in numpy examples in Python, I can search these things in here like this one. For example, numpy creating arrays in here. Okay, I copy of all of these things like this one. We need to import the whole library as with some specific declarative variable in here like this one. This is a static class and you will know what's about in here. But if we have this library, and so if I run this code, and then the 1 2 3 4 5 is added in here. For example, 99, 100 and 2 can be added in here. Okay, and so this specific class to manipulate your mathematical operations. For example, if we have some specific tools to plot Python with matplotlib. Matplotlib is a specific library which is given in the Python. And so if I add this library we need to add the matplotlib library. Okay, and so if we have the pip installation in here like this one, install command can be used in here, and matplotlib can be added by using these terms. Okay, and so this is the specific identifier which relates to the matplotlib section, and so this may be changed for the for some libraries, and so you can check on the internet. Okay, install or pip install matplotlib. You can easily learn how you can install your application to this library. Okay, firstly, we need to understand that we are using the Visual Studio Code, but if you are using the conda, and so the conda command is different from the from the VS Code implementation or Linux package manager, or the some other libraries can be different from our implementation. Okay, and so if we have this information in here, and then we can test our program in here like this one. Examples can be given in here. Okay, and so we have this plot library in here. I can copy up all of these things and run my code in here like this one, and so voila, we have some specific figures to represent our matplotlib library. You cannot know everything about the libraries, but you can check your code in internet for specific task. Okay, and so you can easily implement your code in the Visual Studio Code implementation. Firstly, you need to remember that Python main.py can be run on this code. Okay, and so we have learned about how we can add and install every library in the VS Code related to the Python usage. For example, the machine learning or natural language processings, or the image classification, image processings, and something like that. Okay, but Visual Studio Code is not the only option to use Python language. There are some editors in the internet. Is a web-based Python solvers. Okay, and so for example, Google Colab is is presented in the Google company, and so the Colab is used to develop your Python code in an online platforms. In here we have some introductory files like this one, and so if we have any process in the collaboratory or Colab function, we can add some specific codes in here. I'm sorry, my language is Turkish, but I can translate all the things in here. This is a code which is given in here. If I push the code, and then I can give some specific codes in here like this one, and so the print section can be added in here like this one, and then if I run this code, and so my program is running in online platforms. Okay, so you don't need to use the Visual Studio Code or any library in here, and so this is a totally online editor which is given from the Google application or the server. And so if I have this code implementation in here like this one, the Google gives us the specific RAM and the total memory location, which is given in the Google servers. Okay, and so if you change this RAM and this variable by subscribing the Google account in here like this one, and so if you paid some money in here, and so you can easily increase your RAM and disk storage in your code. But you can easily use the Google Colab to run your specific codes in here. Okay, and if you have some specific examples in here, Numpy examples, for example, like this one, I can copy off all of these things in here, and so if I run this code, and so the import Numpy SMP can be clearly run on this code, because in the online platform every library has been installed by the Google. Okay, or we can create the matplotlib examples in here, like this one, and so if I can copy off the whole of these things in here, and then there are some specific codes in here, like this one. If I run this code, and so the plot of these arrays can be given at this moment. Okay, and easily we can run the whole code as a separate part of this study. Okay, like this one, or 11, and so if I run this code, this generates the specific output of your program, or we can create this diagram in here, and so our plot is changed. And so in the online editors, we don't need to use the Pip or some library implementation program, because every code can be reachable by the internet options. Okay, and so firstly I can give some specific examples in here, like this one. Firstly, you can use the TensorFlow dataset in here. There are some prepared examples session in here, for example, for a neural network or deep learning applications. Okay, we can delete these things. This example is directly related to implementation of some means dataset. Means dataset includes the 1, 2, 3, 4, blah blah blah 9 points as an image, and so this deep learning learns to identify what's the specific number or specific object which is given in the screen or the image. Okay, and so if I have this program in here, like this one, I can delete the whole things in here, like this one and like this one. And so if I have these codes in here, I can easily run each code as a separate part on this study. Okay, and so the import of the TensorFlow is a specific deep learning model which is given in the internet as a Google application. And so if I run the second code in here, and so we have some specific means example in here, because the means requires some specific dataset, and so the online program can easily reach this tool and then run this code. And so if I run the third session in here, you don't need to understand what's the basics or the motivation of the algorithm, but you can easily see that every tools can be included by using the online platform. In the Visual Studio Code application, you need to import all these things with the related downloading libraries. Okay, and so in the Visual Studio Code, you need to install every library and every dataset on your computer. But in the online platform, you don't need to use these things. And so this is the training path of your deep learning model in here, like this one. And so this is running on your computer. Okay, and so there are 6 epoch in here, and so the categorical accuracy or the training accuracy or the test accuracy is detailed, is given in here. Okay, and so the 97% is accurate of your model for a given dataset. Okay, and so in a result, you can easily set or run your specific pre-trained networks or some deep learning or the neural network models on on these notations. Okay, Also, you can use the one variable in here, like this one. Okay, we can delete the whole terms in here, like this one, test map, and this term can be added in here. Okay, and so the remaining parts can be deleted in here, like this one. And so if I run this one code in here, and the epoch is started at this moment. Okay, as you can see, you can run every parameters or every library by using the Colab database on your computer. Okay, this is a specific or powerful tool which is supported by the Google servers, and so you can use either these things or the VS Code in your computer. In the professional company, you may not be allowed to use the online platforms because of the secrecy of your company selections, but you may choose to use the easily task in order to set your parameters or in order to test your program without installing any library your computer. Okay, this is a specific online platform to do to implement of your code selection. So this is not the only tool to run your code in an online platform. You may use the Anaconda Python online platform to run or interpret your code with the online platform. Okay, and new from Anaconda Python in browser can be given in here, and so you may use the Pyodite like this one, and so try Pyodite is given in the REPL directly in your browser session. And so you can easily program your code like this one. Okay, a plus b and print c can be given at this study. Okay, and so always can be given the hello world in here like this one, and so you can easily use the Pyodite terminal emulator to Python session. Okay, or you can install the Anaconda session or Anaconda IDE in here. Okay, with the with the Anaconda Python editor, or download Anaconda Python. Okay, and so distribution can be added in here with the version of the Python 3.9, and so you can easily download this session and install the Python version by using the Anaconda. Anaconda is like the Visual Studio program to run your Python codes in here, not the Visual Studio Code, because the Visual Studio Code can be specialized by using or adding some specific library in here, but in the Anaconda distribution, Anaconda is specified with the usage of the Python. Okay, but in the online platform, the Colab is sufficiently enough to run your code in this session. Okay, and so this is the end of this Python introductory lesson. I hope you will learn everything about the Python session installation, downloading process, and another else. And so if you check my steps on this computer, on this video, and so you can easily download and install and use the Python in your computer. Okay, have a good day.